Hello, everybody. It's Stephanie Brown here for another session with another great vendor today. I'm Stephanie Brown from Intelligent Construction Opportunities, and one of the major reasons we do this is to be able to shine a spotlight on construction vendors like our guest today, SmartBarrel. We do a number of things, and we want to make sure that you are engaging with us, that your questions get answered. And we always want to know that sort of cliche question now, where in the world are you today? And also, if you would like to show off your construction technology, you can contact us directly at info@intelops.com. But with no more further ado, let's welcome Albert. He is the founder and CEO of SmartBarrel, and he's got over 10 years experience in construction himself. He cut his teeth working in the glass and glazing part of construction, and he taught himself coding and built the actual prototype for SmartBarrel. So he knows this particular hardware and software inside and out. Welcome, Albert.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. We want to be able to get into it today. I know you've got your hardware behind you. As I shared with Yana, who you work very closely with, it's not a lot of times when you have something that is hardware and software. So I'm excited for you to be able to show it off for our audience. So do you want to share a little bit more about your background and what made you get into building this and the learning curve that you had to overcome?
Of course. I can do a brief summary, a brief introduction. I guess the starting point is I didn't choose my path. My path probably chose me. And it starts all the way back when I was in college. I genuinely wanted to become an aeronautical engineer and build planes, and that didn't go as planned because before that I got introduced to the glazing industry, and I co-founded the glass factory. And I didn't know much about it. It was just an endeavor that I jumped into. Probably I had the entrepreneurial bug for sure. And then many years in, traveled different countries, all just doing glass and glazing, job sites of all sizes, some as small as residential homes, some as big as $3.5 billion resort in the Bahamas. So I experienced construction and mostly glass and glazing from many different angles and many different aspects. And it kind of naturally started highlighting the issues and the problems with labor tracking. And maybe because I was young, maybe because I was naive, maybe because I have an engineering head, God knows, right? It's all in hindsight game. It didn't sit well with me how everyone was okay with the way labor is being managed and how broken the process is and paper managed and manual. So I thought, again, naively, that maybe there's a solution and let's solve it.
So let's get into that, Albert. So let's sort of do a little dive here. We don't have to go too deep, but what kind of things really stood out and you thought, oh, this is crazy?
I mean, you probably hear this now every day, right? So I was full on field construction, like hard hat boots, like all day, all night in the field. And I was probably in my mid-20s at a time, and I'm living in the technology era of, you're ordering your Uber Eats, everything's on a smartphone, my data is accessible, everything's on demand. Yet, literally here, let me find it. You go to a job site, and this is how we're tracking workers. It's literally a paper clipboard. The problem with this paper clipboard, there's nothing wrong with it on face value. The biggest problem with it is if I'm 6 minutes away from the job site, I have no idea who showed up. I can't answer questions. I can't answer last week questions, today's question. I'm project manager. I have no control over my data. So just from a management perspective, it was absolutely horrible. I had to go and count people by hand, or if someone claimed that they weren't there or had to be there, it's literally he said, she said, all day, all night. On top of it, there's payroll, which is every week, and it's like thousands and thousands of dollars, very expensive. You go to overtime, double time. It's people's livelihood, and literally we're tracking it on like a he said, she said system. And there's a whole other layer of like safety, right? happened few times. We had like people on swing stages, wind gets up. I want to know, do I have 6 people on job site? Did everyone leave? It's a big liability. It's people's safety at stake. So you add a bit of like management slash management of or HR, and a bit of like payroll and money, and then a bit of safety, and then you start realizing that this huge liability, financial, schedule, safety, insure, like you name it, is literally tracked by one of the
There's
most
just no
primitive
way to
ways out.
capture that on a paper and a clipboard.
Just didn't make sense. Like
So
absolutely didn't make
what were
sense.
you doing? Did you decide, okay, I'm going to sit down with some paper and make a workflow? I have to compliment your website right off the bat, and I will encourage people to go to smartbarrel.io, because I think it very much articulates so many sections of how you're addressing this problem. I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our viewers from Brazil. We've got Randy Teles Galan from Brazil. He wants to know if anyone else is here from Brazil. I'm not sure about that, Randy, but we can certainly check for you post live stream. But thanks for joining us today. Yeah, so I mean, we just sort of want to understand, okay, so you saw the problem. It's pretty obvious. And when you talk about the safety, I mean, what an understatement. I mean,
Yeah.
however many people make it onto the site, and, the major thing is who made it off the site.
I'm exactly where I started. I didn't choose this path. I've always had an entrepreneurial bug. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So the natural progression for me was, I'm going to go start another glass factory or glass contracting business. Like that was like my goal. And part of doing this exercise was, while you model or while you try to like assess the business, is understanding how am I going to control like my labor. So I worked for an amazing company, a huge company down here in South Florida. They're one of the biggest glazers down here, commercial glazers. And luckily, I was very close to the VP. I was very close to the 2 owners, and I walked to them and I said, listen, we might need to look for like technology solution. Doesn't make sense how we're tracking it. And obviously it was a no-brainer. They said, yeah, go figure it out. And I got the chance to research some of them. I got a chance to test and experiment with others. I got the chance to pilot some, yada, yada. And what I very quickly realized is that nothing really solved it. And by that, I don't mean the technology was the problem. It was just, you say wrong place, wrong time. It was wrong technology for the wrong industry, right? So it's like iris scanner. Like iris scanner has nothing to do on a job site. Sometimes we don't have power. Sometimes we have mud, rain, dust. Your workers is a revolving door. You don't know who's going to show up tomorrow. Like, it's the variables were so extensive, and then very quickly start realizing that, okay, whoever built this really maybe took some shortcuts, or basically took this and digitized it, which is on paper great. Yeah, but all the data flows that this captured is still in the other process. It's much better than paper. This is a digital copy. We can access everywhere, but the data quality is still like poor. Or some other places, it opened a kind of form of excuses. I don't have a smartphone. I don't have a data plan. My dog ate my fob yesterday. We didn't have power. Jimmy wasn't on site. The trailer was locked down. I was there early. I was there late. Yada, yada, yada. And then you realize that you're really not much far off from the paper clipboard, even though you made this big investment and yada, yada. And this is probably what spiraled into an internal challenge that I decided to take it personally, basically.
Well, let's sort of narrow a little bit. So what's making SmartBarrel different from those other applications? Because to your very point, there are some generic timekeeping, but there are also construction timekeeping ones. So what did you think you were doing that was making you more unique and quite frankly, I'll say slamming the problem in the face?
Yeah, I think fundamentally what makes us very, very different fundamentally is that we didn't settle until we covered all our ground base with excuses. So we literally wrote down like 120, like 100 to 120 like line item. And we said, we have to check every one of them. Like if there's no power, it should work. No internet, it should work. Foreman is not on site, it should work. First day the worker walks in, he doesn't have a phone, he has a smartphone. Like we went through the whole list of excuses that we might encounter and went through them. But the result of this exercise basically created a solution that wins on 3 different levels. Level number 1 is that it is easily deployable by anyone on any project. So this is number 1. We don't need an IT guy, we don't need infrastructure, we don't need anything, magnetic, weatherproof, The second one is any worker at any point in the 24 hours of a day should be able to walk in and check in with nothing on him. This was like pillar number 2.
So can I just back you up a little bit? I want you to make that so the audience understands we're not talking just software here. We're actually talking hardware. Do you have something that you can sort of show them?
Of course.
What's behind you?
So basically, we took this and the philosophy, the main starting point was we're not going to allow data entry. Every worker is going to check himself in. And while the natural idea progression goes towards a smartphone, and then you very quickly realize that it's very problematic to have 50, 70, 20, 30, 150 workers download an app on their phone and comply with it. We realized that the only solution is to build the hardware. And we came up with this box. And then going back to my pillars of earlier, what does this box do? Well, it does 3 things very simply. 1, it allows any foreman of any age and any technology background to deploy this on his job site sub 5 minutes. It's 100% weatherproof. It is fully magnetic. So literally you walk into your office trailer, container, frame, drywall frame, literally smack it on the side, and that's it. This is the whole installation. It comes with modem LTE connection for all of North America built in. So there is no connect to Wi-Fi, connect to LAN, connect to anything. Mind you, we still can handle all those scenarios. We can connect to Wi-Fi if you're in a New York basement. We can connect to Starlink satellite if you're in a solar farm in the middle of nowhere. We still have all those capabilities, but right out of the box, you need nothing, no setup whatsoever. So you install it outside and it stays online, GPS connected, solar powered with a battery 24/7 for 2 years if you want it. Nobody needs to touch it.
I have a question for you. Okay, so it's magnetic on the back. So obviously it adheres to something metal. Yeah. What is stopping anybody from just picking it up and walking away with it? What's keeping it safe and secure?
Amazing question. We get this all the time, and I have 3 answers for it. Answer number 1 is it has GPS inside of it, so it tracks its location. There's enough intelligence. If it moves, it locks itself. It says I'm not supposed to be outside this job site. Yada yada. Step number 1. Step number 2 is usually if you need additional mounting, you can screw it in place. Step number 3, and this is the real answer of it all, is that this is theft proof. Because for the simple reason it holds no aftermarket value. Nobody wants to do anything with it. I'll give it to you for free, Stephanie. What are you going to do with it? Right. You're going to take it to a pawn shop. They're going to tell you, listen, get this out of my face. It has no aftermarket value. It has no expensive components. It's literally a very fancy calculator. So for that exact reason, and especially it has a very strong phenomena as well. It has a camera, it's recording, it's tracking, yada, yada. Nobody wants to even deal with it. So that's why we don't have theft issues at all, actually.
Wow. Well, you built in the reason not to, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you've done. Yeah. So do users have to have their picture taken when they're using this, or what is that sign? I mean, you talk about biometrics, so I would like you to sort of explain it, for the audience, what does that mean exactly, and where's that and AI and all this magical stuff inside of that box?
Exactly. So huge disclaimer. I come from 10 years of construction. I'm not a San Francisco tech startup guy, mining data. It was really built with the same fear of every contractor in mind. Like, is this going to be a privacy concern? Yada. So when we were designing it, all these were taken into consideration. And what we do, first of all, is we do not do any facial recognition. We do facial verification. They seem very simple, but they're very, very different in data
Tell us
processing.
the difference. I think that's great call out, Al, because so many people conflate certain terms with one
Exactly.
another. Yes.
Exactly. So maybe I should start by saying how once you've installed the device, if you have 12 workers or literally like 450 workers, how do they check in? The check-in is as basic as the following. Workers walk up, they have nothing on them, they just showed up to the job site, they find this orange box, type in their phone number, hit enter, takes a picture of the face, push it up to the cloud. Step number one is uh, we have a self-facial verification process, meaning you clock in for the first time, Stephanie, I have no idea what you look like. Second time as well. By the third and fourth, the system is simply going to compare the face with this number with the day before and the day before and the day before, hence basically trying to detect if someone else is using your number. Meaning, if you show up with a picture and you say, hey, Albert, who is this person? We have no clue. You have to type in a phone number, hit enter, send the picture with it, and just say, hey, is this the same face that's been checking in before? And that's how we catch body punch. So
Okay.
it's a much simpler algorithmic approach that doesn't go into scanning faces and getting identity from a face. All we're saying is this phone number that is Jimmy is attached with this picture. Is that the same Jimmy you've been seeing the whole week? And if it's yes,
who
it's
is
good.
verifying that? Like I'm curious. So say supposing you had a very specialized architect that had to come on the site for a very one-off reason, and that he or she was never going to return again, but that you still needed them to come to the gate and actually show that they are on site. How is the system strong enough to take that person, and then who's verifying at what point whether they should legitimately have been there and what was their business being there?
Of course, the whole data goes into a dashboard, to a platform, and this is where most of the data is being processed. So you have a whole different personas that are seeing this data, from the foreman to the project manager to the payroll admin, yada yada. At bare minimum, you have a very high resolution color picture of every attendant. So this is at bare minimum. When they come over and over, the system automatically starts verifying and flags them with a green ring or a red ring. And this basically triggers a notification for you to look into this data further and investigate if this is Stephanie or this is not Stephanie, who was trying to attempt to walk in, yada yada. Or
Okay.
basically punch in times to the timesheet.
So all right, so it's again, like most applications, permission based, and there's admin people that would have the power to see that dashboard. I know that on the website there's certain images that we could share. I don't know if there's something specific that you could share today that's going to show people what your dashboard could look like. If not, we're going to make sure they have that information after the fact.
Of course.
When we talk about the data on that dashboard, so can you just sort of recover what that data is? Let's kind of break down I'll say the primary data and then the secondary data.
I can share real quick the dashboard, because the dashboard speaks for itself, in the sense that what you're basically experiencing with the dashboard is a continuous story. So let me know if here
There we are.
Now it's visible.
Yeah, no, I'm going to make my screen as big as possible so that
the first thing you're gonna notice is that when you look at the dashboard, it's not your typical dashboard. It actually has so much weather data. It looks like almost we're running an airport, not a construction site.
Yes.
It comes from the very basic philosophy that in construction, weather is a partner. And then if you have 40 guys on a job site and then the wind speed is going to change, so you have to turn down swing stages, or the humidity is bad, so you can't apply caulking, or vice versa, wind, rain, snowstorm, yada, maybe you should relocate your crew or change their task, yada, yada. Weather is a big deal for us. So first of all, when you log in, you see all your active projects, and then every square inch of this card, which represents a project, is filled with information. You can see obviously a project name, project date. Then you have this gauge, which is all your workers currently active today. So this is basically a live gauge that will show me how many workers have checked in, and in the afternoon, as they check out, it should go down to 0. So it will tell me you've had 14 workers today. So by 7 p.m., if I log in and I see I still have 4 working out of 18, I can simply go to the project, see who they are, and call them, since everything's phone number based, and ask them, hey, why are you guys still working? Is it legit working? Did they forget to check out? What is happening? But the data is just flowing to you. Now, when you access a single project page or the project, this is when really the data starts becoming amazing. First of all, you have your headcount for the day. Also, we have very good understanding on how to track subcontractors, whether it's temp agency, labor, subcontractor on schedule of value or TNM. You can group your workers into their own companies. Second, you can see for the last 14 days if the project has been ramping up, ramping down. Are you working on weekends? Are you not working on weekends? When's your load on a daily basis? When are most people coming in or most people coming out? So there's a lot of just off the bat insights that if you've worked construction long enough, just by looking at this, you have half the story, right? Okay, is this like project ramping up? The job site, obviously the map, you can see where it's at on the project, weather and the weather forecast for the day. Those are just handy. Now, this is the interesting part. This is what we call a timesheet. So for each company, you have a timesheet. And this is where the magic happens. This timesheet with the in of every worker, with the green ring verified, with automatically a rule that adjusts the punch in. So you can create all sorts of rules that say anyone who checks in between 7:30 and 8, route to 8, anyone who checks out, da da da. With the out, also verified with the roundup rule and the automatic lunch break. So see this timesheet, zero human have touched it. This has been workers walking to this orange box, leaving on the orange box. I see every worker, their exact hours, their exact shift, this punch, where they punch in, the location, the whole data set. And this is the magical part, is that this timesheet that is maybe 80% ready for payroll hasn't been touched by a human or a user. It's source data verified by either the device or GPS or location. And then someone comes here and starts the process with just reviewing versus creating the whole process.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I mean, I think oftentimes, and I often refer to any kind of digital solution. In this case, it's a combination of hardware and software, and we'll get into a little bit of what your mobile app is all about. But you've basically taken this as a tool, a digital tool that is cutting down on the administration. Because at the end of the day, your story at the top of this was we're getting rid of a paper and a pen and a clipboard. And that's administration. That's, keeping track of basically the attendance of the job site on the daily. And the fact that no human has touched this, to input this, I mean, that's one of the major goals of any team on site is keep the paperwork to a minimum. So, well done.
Thank you. The biggest challenge was designing all of this was we weren't trying to automate anything. We weren't trying to replace people or change. All stakeholders are still involved in the process. We just shifted a bit. Instead of having the foreman typing in all the hours as data entry and him being the gatekeeper, he has the data in. Now he can go ahead and code it. He can assign which cost code they work on, split the shifts, put the hours, distribute them, overtime, double time, comments. He can go through the whole process of coding, approving, not approving shifts. If I go and I say, yes, this shift is approved, it's legit, locked it in, ready for payroll, he still controls his crew. He still controls the data. And his project manager can then review it and the payroll admin. So the pillars are still the same. We didn't disrupt anything. We just streamlined the process. And the $1 million value prop here is the quality of the data went from nothing to the most phenomenal data set you've ever had, which basically means that your payroll is accurate, which means your job cost is accurate, which means when you're done with the project and you want to run any analytics, it's actually worthwhile now. So because you have accurate data.
So again, you name out those roles that you said that are signing those cost codes. So it'd be somebody that's got the permission or the full administration rights to do this. And they're putting in these cost codes, is that right?
Yeah. So depending on the company type, depending on company size, depending on the project size, I mean, it's the good thing about this industry is that there is no standardization. You can have 10 different projects and there's completely 10 different structures, but the core values are the same. You have workers showing up to a project to check in and check out and log in hours. Then their foreman or their crewman or their team lead or their gang master, whatever each one love to call them, they're basically in charge of taking those hours and putting them into tasks. what kind of work someone, which job ID, which cost code ID, what they work on. And some of them are very elaborate, sophisticated cost codes. Some of them are very high level. Then from there, it goes to another level where the project manager is overseeing the whole day, and he's going in and making sure that everyone makes sense, everyone checked out, yada, yada. And then this goes one step further into the payroll admin, which runs it at the end of the week, calculates all the overtime, double times, all system generated, and then export it to payroll for the checks.
Fantastic. So speaking of exporting to payroll for the checks, we want to sort of also cover off, what benefit this is to the guys on site. I mean, so what systems does, first of all, SmartBarrel integrate with? And I'm fairly certain you're going to say the usual suspects, but let us know.
Yeah.
That and whoever else.
So first of all, in terms of workers, and probably I'm not sure I covered this part, but since we use the phone number as a unique identifier for the worker, which has a tremendous amount of value, from an ease of use and easy for the worker, but also easy for the contractor. Everyone has cell phone numbers, just figure it out. We basically use it as a channel to communicate with the worker. So we don't need the worker to download an app. We don't need to give an email, password, yada. Simply by SMS, every time the worker checks in, we can send an SMS to his phone in English or in Spanish based on his native language that says, "Hi, Stephanie, you have checked in at project 1234, and this is the time that's been rounded to." And then they get an in, they get an out. On top of it, you can communicate with them to ask them when they check out if they have any incident to report, if they took their lunch break based on your company policies. So the worker right now has a free way of getting an SMS receipt. He has a channel of communication with his company that does not require him to download an app. He's worried about being tracked, yada, yada, yada. It's just a simple SMS, usually I mean, I don't know if anyone charges for SMS anymore, but it should be 100% free. That allows him to communicate with the company also with his native language. If he writes in Spanish, the system understands and sends all the notifications accordingly.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. So let's answer Kevin's question here. Thanks for jumping on this live stream today, Kevin Bowen. We really appreciate that. Can the data in the dashboard be used to intelligently predict future project requirements, the amount of construction workers needed, and provide the accurate bidding on future projects?
This is an amazing question from Kevin, and this is the dream. Okay, this is the dream. And in the world of analytics, which is really the science of getting information out of data, there is 3 phases to the data. There is, and doesn't matter if you're like the biggest AI engine, doesn't matter if you're an oil company or literally a restaurant or a small contract. It's the same principle. There is collecting the data. Then this has its own challenges. When you collect the data, is your data accurate? Is you get it legit? Is it cleaned up? Is it a formatted data? Yada yada. This is where we're focusing most of our effort right now, and we're almost towards the end of it. We do phenomenal job in collecting phenomenal level of data. Then the second pillar, it's called descriptive analytics, and descriptive analytics is basically taking a data set and basically running some analytics on top of it. So it's usually from today backwards. How much insight can I get from this data? Again, it's contingent on phase 1 to be working great. We're already here. So this is where we're playing now. You have this data set. How much output can I give you from this data set? Can I give you projection on average worker per day, average shift length, average dollar per hour? How much can I give you? How much is Jimmy working on? How much is this cost code working? How much this project is performing? This is where we're focusing on right now. And this is basically taking a very complicated data set that has workers and hours and cost code and phase codes and jobs and projects and transfer and PTO and days off, and see how much I can give you insight from today looking backwards. Once we've established this, we go into something called predictive analytics. And predictive analytics is when you say, okay, I have an amazing source of input of data. I have a very good analysis of what the heck's going on. Can you now project into the future? And probably, Kevin, if you're anywhere remote this industry and this type of data set, the biggest challenge is that job site, they don't follow pattern. It's always a bell-shaped curve. It's not linear. Neither production is linear, neither headcount is linear, neither worker is linear. So how can we have this data normalize and represent reality? Because what makes it, there's basically a very easy and stupid rule of thumb that basically allows anyone to understand if their analytics make any sense. And in construction, it's very, very easy. You run an analytical model and you look out the window. If it remotely represents what's happening, then maybe you're on the right track. And if it's fully delusional, you have to delete and start over. If it's
is this something you're working on now, or is this something right now in this dashboard that you're showing your interface right now? What this would look like, or are you building this out? I mean, AI's, it's new, but it's old, but it's new, and it'll continue to construct.
Yeah.
So,
we're definitely not yet in the predictive. I think we're focusing more. There's still so much to do in terms of the clean data collection. And then we're also heavy in the predictive. Like, if you want to understand this data, what does that mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there are reports that we generate. You can connect to Power BI. We can have public APIs. We can do data warehousing, dump it, and compare this data with other tools such as Procore, scheduling tool, yada, yada, and cross-reference it across the board. This is where we're at. And I think only when we've finished phase 1 and 2, we might, especially with the power of AI, we might start looking into predictive analytics.
So let's sort of take that combination of questions that Kevin so smartly asked. But what would this actually look like now if we were trying to help even the site workers and extend the usage of SmartBarrel as far as their day in, day out work is concerned? Talk a little bit about safety, maybe. I mean, that's always the classic, and to me, it's a bit of a cliche, and sometimes that's even a political landmine on any given day in any project. Let's be honest. But how is this really helping the worker?
It's. I mean, let's put it this way. And you're absolutely spot on, right? It is a big conversation, big topic. People are polarized about safety. Some people see it as life-changing. Some other people see it as like absolutely waste of a resource and everything in between. Our philosophy is the following: keep it simple so you can get compliance, right? Don't go do a 60-page checklist. Ask one question. Don't ask it through a QR code that you have to scan. Send them a text message. Don't send it in a language that they need to translate. Send them in their native language. So we've always broken this kind of like, what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish? For instance, every time a worker checks out, or punches out, we might send an SMS to their phone that says, "Hi, Jimmy, you've just checked out. Do you have any incident to report?" They can get it in Spanish. Any answer or reply they do. And then incident, we kept it vague for a reason. It can be, I hit my elbow. It can be, I saw material get stolen. Anything you want to report.
It's not accusatory. That's why you're trying.
It's not accusatory. It's not snitching mindset. It's more so like collaborative teamwork. Like, how would you have done it in real life? I would call you. I would say, "Hey, Seth, anything going on?" You'll tell me. And this is kind of the same mindset we want to keep. Broadcasting tool is like a small widget that we have that basically can have the PM, safety manager, payroll admin go and write a message in English, write an equivalent message in Spanish, and broadcast it to everyone active today, or broadcast it to anyone who was active. What would be a great example for this? Guys, wind is picking up. There is a thunderstorm. I don't want anyone on the crane by 3:30. I want the whole job site shut down, right? And everyone is getting it instantly on their phone pinging, and they're getting it in English or in Spanish. Another one, snowstorms coming, job sites shut down. Nobody drives 45 minutes to your job site. You can send this message at 5 a.m. So there's a lot of tools that contractors have showcased the creativity of utilize them for their own way. But the reason why they're successful is simply because they're so simple. They get so much compliance. And this is the enemy. The enemy is you can build an amazing form, but if the accessibility of the form is too steep, nobody's going to go into it. If the questions are too boring or complicated and repetitive, nobody's going to answer them. If they're not in your native English, it's so overwhelming, you're not going to answer. So the idea is to always build tools that basically allow you to have a good gauge on your workforce, whether it's from a safety landscape, whether it's from timekeeping. For instance, when you take the picture, not only we scan for the face, but we also scan for PPE equipment. I can show you here. Yeah, I can show you here.
I want to address Randy's question, but I want you to show us the PPE, and I also have a sort of a follow-on because of the heat issues now, Albert. I mean, what kind of things could be built in that would, automatically trigger a notification about heat?
We're working actually on features for heat, snow, da, da, da. When the weather has a severe alert, you'll be able to press a button on the severe alert weather, and it will basically create this component, which is a broadcast message that will send the
Okay, I
alert
gotta
in
bring it up
English and in
here.
Spanish
There we
and
go.
broadcast it to everyone. So you'll be able to go on the widget, see if there's any alert, say broadcast message, and it will automatically populate all the lists of your active users and broadcast them a message in English or in Spanish saying, hey, this is a heat wave. Those are 5 things to do. Stay in the shade, hydrate, blah, 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 and then go through them. And maybe with a short link that can take you to a national weather station where you can have further more insights on how to avoid being hurt.
There, very good. So let's go to Randy's question. Is it safe to keep worker information in the SmartBarrel dashboard, and how do you ensure that there are no data leaks?
Well, of course, cybersecurity has been like a huge concern recently, and we've been mindful of this since day one of our incorporation. So we've taken a lot. I mean, they're very boring processes, but we've taken a lot of like measures from a data structure, from an architecture standpoint. Everything's encrypted to the cloud. Everything is stored in the cloud. Most of the database is sitting in an offline environment, only connected to like verified portals to the back end. We use class A cloud solution like AWS and Google Clouds, which have all the compliance of security, of privacy, of data redundancy, and whatnot. Because there's an issue of cybersecurity, but there's also issue of downtime. You don't want a service where, I don't know, a hurricane in Houston can put you down. So we have clusters throughout the nation. We support Canada, we're all the way
Well, talk
Alaska.
about that. That's stuff that people don't really understand, though. I think when you're building something that is taking personal information, people need to understand, what does that actually look like? Where's my data sitting? And you just sort of, I love the fact that you've talked about a diversified cloud map, if you will, purposely for
Yeah,
many of these reasons.
this comes very far up into the architecture, and then I mean, I am technical enough, but nowhere near the phenomenal team that we have. They've all worked on like mega projects and way more privacy data than we track. And technology is at a place, because if you think about it, your cell phone has more privacy information than you can even imagine, and everything's on the cloud right now. And cloud used to be thought as the enemy for the longest time. Now it's the infrastructure. I think the world lives on cloud. There's no more having like you are way more at risk having a server in a closet that in your mind you think is at reach than having your data sitting in the cloud. Cloud data centers are exceptionally secure. They're secure from cyber attack, but they're also secure. I don't know if anyone has visited data center. It's literally like a military base. There's armed security guards all across. There's camera system, infrared system. They are usually ballistic proof, weatherproof, cyclone proof. Yeah, they're phenomenally well built and tanked, and they're placed usually around the world strategically to where you have copies of your data scattered, in the sense that if anything happens to one, you don't lose the integrity of your information.
And the
So
coincidence is that construction is building data. They are building more and more data centers all the time. But thank you for that explanation, Albert, because I think too often people hear cloud and they kind of understand that it's no longer sitting natively on their computer. However, what's protecting it? I mean, and we'll say protecting in so much as the big boys are, are wanting you as a customer, so they're going to protect your data. Meaning
what I would say, and I mean, I dealt with this all day, all night. Again, like I come from construction and I get the mindset, but I think the easiest way to give comfort is major hacking happens from a human error, right? It's not, nobody can access your data native. It's very, very hard. Usually they can penetrate it through some of your company. There's some social hacking and whatnot. They can call Jennifer and say, hey, Jennifer, I'm new hire guy. Can you give me the ADP password data? And they access your pair information. Usually the human is still the weakest link to access the data. But what I'd love to tell everyone who's skeptical about cloud, your computer sitting in your office or your laptop or this, is exponentially less secure than the worst cloud service you will get. You don't have antiviruses, it's not up to date, it's connecting to Wi-Fi. You go to Starbucks, you connect to Starbucks, you have to your uncle's house. I mean, you almost want zero data sitting on your laptop, because no matter how attached you are to the piece of hardware, it's one of the least secure devices you have. Versus having the worst like server on the cloud is exponentially more secure, because they're in the business of keeping your data safe. And there's people watching it 24/7. They're updating firewalls and firmware and antiviruses, and by the minute, that it's impossible for you to even keep up.
Well, I hope that answers your question, Randy. It's certainly even more of an education for myself. So again, Albert, thanks for sort of poking around at those bigger issues. I want to sort of, as we are winding the corner to wrap up today, can you talk a little bit about your success stories? I mean, you've worked with Qt, you've worked with Thornton. There's some really big players that you've got using SmartBarrel, and I just want to kind of understand. Tell us a little bit about what they're feeling about your tool and how everything's working for them.
I guess it's more correct to say, like, you guys can go on the website and read their success story, so at least you hear them say the success versus us. But I will summarize usually the experience, and also I feel I have to emphasize that the bigger bulk of majority of our contractors, and they are specialty trade contractors, which means they're electricians, drywalls, MEP, a concrete contractor, the list goes on and on, MEP, plumbing, like the whole thing. And it's because we track their workforce and basically control this like asset class, whether it's their own worker, whether they have a temp worker, whether it's like labor for hire. We help them with payroll, we help them with billing, we help them with job costing. So this is majority of our contractors. And what contractors have loved the most is three things: is how easy and simple is it to deploy. Like, this is a big challenge. You can have a phenomenal technology. If you have your IT guy go on the job site and run network cables and power, you already lost half the battle. So since it's insanely deployable, very easy to do. The second one is how easy it is for the worker himself to check in and check out. Right, so it's absolutely no excuse. The no bullshit comes from this slogan that we have,
Yeah.
which is basically, maybe I should show it on a more native version, which is the decal sticker that we have on our job site. And this is not a marketing stunt. This is basically the DNA behind the design, like how much we have to take a step further, make it 100% weatherproof for snow, connect through a modem, connect through another modem, yada yada. And it's all to serve the contractor into streamlining his payroll. So A, very easy to deploy. B, every worker, whether you have 6 or you have 300, they can check in, excuse-free, fraud-free. And number 3, having all the rest of your timesheet populated and sent out to payroll.
Yeah,
and this can mean 10 different things.
Well, I mean, it. Listen, as I say it. If I've said it 100 times now, I've said it 1,000 times. These are tools, and they need to just work as efficiently and effective for the time that they're being used and applied as for the times when they're not. And so you mount it anywhere. We'll just, I just want to sort of recap all this. You mount it anywhere. It's magnetic. It's useless. Even if somebody ran off with it, you start checking in. That's, pretty cut and dry. You assign those cost codes. That's for all the people that have the permissions to be able to get into the more specific data that it's capturing, and then send it off to payroll. And, what more would you need and should you need? And I want to thank Albert, because you went into what you're going to be doing in the way of predictive analytics to take this data then to the next steps, and who knows what else AI is going to start to uncover as this particular application makes sense to add in other data points. Is there anything else, Albert, that you'd like to cover today?
No, I think thank you so much for having me. I think I don't get tired from the story. I don't get tired from the challenge. I think we have a long way to go. There's so much that we can accomplish. It's a very interesting challenge that we endeavored. Every couple of weeks I have a great check mark, which basically I self-assess where I'm at with this challenge. And if I were to stop doing SmartBarrel tomorrow, I'll probably pursue it again after 2 weeks. There's so much to accomplish, and it's very, very rewarding to see how much we make differences for contractors and how we change their lives.
Well, I mean, for sure. I mean, what a great way to wrap that up. And I just want to give a shout out to Mark Facciani. I'm sorry if I bastardized that name, but anyway, he says, thank you, Albert. And I thank you too. And I thank everybody that took their time today to jump on and actually participate with us. Engagement is important. I mean, if you have questions, if there's things that you want to know, and obviously Albert has shown himself to be able to go deep and wide, not just in terms of what SmartBarrel is offering, but he understands how to contextualize the very tool that he has built for the industry. So again, I want to thank him and thank you, the audience, for participating today. And Albert, we'll see you on the other side.
Yep. See you.